Hey Lake Point, Pastor Michael here to get you caught up on this week's message. And this week, Pastor Nathan wanted to address something that missiologists have warned is the greatest threat to Christianity in the last few decades. And it's not atheism or secularism or statism or socialism, it's individualism. And COVID has really only exacerbated the issue. The sad truth is our society in North America has never been more disconnected, independent, tribalistic, or apathetic. And so to kind of kick things off, Nate started by offering us a definition for individualism. And individualism is a cultural mindset. It's a cultural mindset that believes that I am the center of my own universe, that I'm the center of the universe, that I am my own moral conscience, and ultimately that freedom and fulfillment are my right. And so what you need to know is that individualism is not a modern movement, it's a cultural mindset that has been ingrained in our Western way of thinking for centuries. In every culture, there seems to be a tension between an emphasis placed on individuals versus emphasis placed on the group at large. In traditional cultures, the emphasis is placed on the group, which at times can make individuals feel oppressed or repressed. That was the case with European culture pre-Enlightenment. Authority structures in society were at times abusive and overbearing, and so when the United States became a nation, the pendulum actually swung the other way, which is often the case, and when we seek to correct things, we often overcorrect. And so in turn, a lot of emphasis was placed on the individual, which, when left unchecked, has kind of created what is called in sociological circles as extreme individualism. Now, you probably haven't heard or used that term before. However, you're probably familiar with how it's, branded under the banner of autonomy or freedom. In many ways, these words are divisive today, probably because of the tension surrounding the virus and vaccine passports. But historically, these words have actually unified North Americans. It's what made our culture so unique. We all value, to some extent, individualism. Even Christians will say things like, my faith is between me and God. My religious beliefs are personal. And we say things like, I don't need to go to church to be a Christian. Now, none of those statements are biblically accurate, but they are a reflection of the culture in which we live. And so, let's talk about that culture. And the question that Nate wanted to address for us is are we becoming happier as a culture? Because that's what hyper-individualism promises. It says that the more we focus on ourselves as individuals, the more happy we will become. And so the question is it working? Well, research has actually found that there's actually 4 things that will determine a person's happiness. People are happy if they have, first of all, a few close friends. Everyone wants to know and be known, and so we all want people that we feel safe enough to be ourselves with. And so a few close friends achieves this. The second thing is a nuclear family. A nuclear family means a traditional family, mom, dad, brother, sister, people to do life with. The third thing that makes us happy is meaningful work, and it doesn't matter if it's high paying or a job that doesn't pay at all, like being a parent. It doesn't matter if it's glamorous or ordinary, it just needs to be meaningful, something that gives your life purpose. And finally, the fourth thing is a theology or a philosophy. In other words, a way of thinking that helps you make sense of not only life, but of death and suffering. And so those 4 things are really what makes us happy. Yet, our culture is hollowing those things out. I mean, take friends, for example. The average person in our lifetime has gone from 3.2 close friends to only 1.8 close friends. In fact, 40% of North American adults say that they don't even have one confidant. In a weird way, individualism is a pursuit of happiness that is undermining our happiness. And so the key to our happiness is actually found in community. But what we see happening in our society is not true community. Often what we see happening is we replace it with tribalism. And as I said, tribalism is not a true form of community because it's not based on mutual love. Rather, it's based on mutual hate. Not on what you are united for, it's what you are united against. The book of Romans is a theological masterpiece written by the Apostle Paul. And in chapter 12, Paul begins to lay out God's vision for how we are to do life together as followers of Jesus in community. And this is what he says. He says, "And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all he has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind he will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship him." And so if you are a Christ follower, your body doesn't belong to you. It actually belongs to God. That's what we just read. Paul is saying that we are to offer ourselves, our full selves to God, not just our minds or our belief systems or our doctrines, but our bodies, our sexuality, our soul, our spirit, our whole being to God as a living sacrifice. And notice how he starts the verse. He said, brothers and sisters. In other words, we're a family. God's vision for his church is that we would be a family. And then he continues, he says, don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by the changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. Paul says that we're a family not built around blood or land or political ideology or ethnic identity, but built on doing the will of God. And then he continues, because of the privilege and authority that God has given me, I give each of you this warning. Don't think that you're better than you really are. Be honest in your evaluation of yourselves, measuring yourselves by the faith God has given us. Just as our bodies have many parts and each part has a special function, so it is with Christ's body. We are many parts of one body, and we all belong to each other. And what we see here is that Paul's using this metaphor for the church, and it's even more bold and intimate than that of a family. What he's saying is that we're one body, and that we don't just belong to God, that we actually belong to each other, which takes individualism and just kind of throws it out the window. God's vision for his church is that we would be a body, that all of us would have a part to play, and that each part would be interdependent upon the rest. I mean, we see that in the next 15 verses. Paul writes that in his grace, God has given us different gifts for doing certain things well. So if God has given you the ability to prophesy, speak out with as much faith as God has given you. If your gift is serving others, then serve them well. If you're a teacher, teach well. If your gift is to encourage others, Paul says be encouraging. If it's to be giving, give generously. If God has given you the leadership ability, take the responsibility seriously. And if you have a gift for showing kindness to others, he says, do it gladly. Paul is saying that the gifts God is giving you are not for you, that they're actually for other people. They are for the body. They are for the family, the community. And then Paul fires off 25 short little commands that kind of lead to the kind of loving community God envisions for his church. He says, don't just pretend to love others, really love them. He says, hate what is wrong. Hold tightly to what is good. He says, love each other with genuine affection. Take delight in honoring each other. Never be lazy. Work hard and serve the Lord enthusiastically. Rejoice in our confident hope. Be patient in trouble. Keep on praying. When God's people are in need, be ready to help them. Always be eager to practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Don't curse them. Pray that God will bless them. Be happy with those who are happy. Weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with each other. Don't be too proud to enjoy the company of ordinary people. Don't think you know it all. Never pay back evil with more evil. Do things in such a way that everyone can see you are honorable. Do all that you can to live in peace with everyone. Never take revenge. Leave that to the righteous anger of God. For the scriptures say, I will take revenge. I will pay them back, says the Lord. Instead, if your enemies are hungry, feed them. If they are thirsty, give them something to drink. And in doing this, you will heap burning coals of shame on their heads. I mean, this is the community. This is the exact opposite of tribalism. It's not about uniting hatred towards your enemies, but actually loving those who think or act differently than you. And then Paul concludes with number 25, and he says, don't let evil conquer you, but conquer evil by doing good. And you have to admit, it's a beautiful and compelling vision for God's church. And that's the vision he has for us. And so let's pursue it in community together. Enjoy working through discussion questions. We'll see you next time.